I'm David Jackson. I'm the director of Winterlong. Winterlong is a story about a poacher, and the poacher has to change his very feral ways, his ways of living, when his estranged teenage son is left unexpectedly on his doorstep. So that's the premise of the story. It's about a father and son. The ideas came from lots of places, actually. They came from where I was living. So I live in a small town called Hastings, which is kind of a rundown Victorian town on the south coast, and the landscape there is very particular and very special. And I wanted to make a film set in that landscape. You know, I moved there from London, many years ago, and I wanted the film to be a response to that landscape. And then I guess, the fact that I met Francis McGee, the actor, the main actor, and he was a real inspiration in terms of how he was living and the stories we told each other about being parents, about being fathers. And I guess I also sort of was reading some things as well. I read, there's a couple of novels and things that I'd read that were really sort of influential in sort of my thinking about all of that. So I kind of pulled all of those things together into this big story. Well, a small story, but hopefully told on a sort of a bigger, more cinematic scale. How did I cast the actors? Well, it was a mixture of sort of family and friends, really. So the main boy, Julian, is played by my own son, Harper. And he had never acted before in a film. And so it was quite a big thing for him to come on board. But everybody else, were professional actors, and mostly people that I knew. So the actress that plays Carol and Barbara, I wrote the parts especially for them because they were friends, and I knew that they wanted to work with me. So I kind of pulled it together from family and friends and people that I knew, and then I had a casting director that helped me with some of the other things. But mostly family and friends. Yeah, why did I cast Harper? I cast Harper because I really believed in Harper, and he had never acted in a film before. But I'd seen him do sort of youth theatre projects, and he's really committed. He wants to go to drama school and act and have a career as an actor. So it kind of made sense. It just happened that Harper was close to me and living in the same house, and I thought that I can have the ideal sort of working relationship as a director with somebody very inexperienced, and work with them on a daily basis and rehearse at home, and we could talk about the script, and but none of that happened. I cast Harper, I gave him the part, and everybody was sort of really everybody was asking, well, who's playing the boy? And I would say, my son is playing the boy. And everybody would sort of stroke their chins and say, So the director has cast his son as the main part. And I was like, oh, okay. And so there was a lot to prove for both of us, actually. And that relationship was really, difficult is the wrong word, but it was, an intense relationship, because Harper had never acted in a film before, and there was a lot riding on him and how he performed. So we didn't really get any rehearsal time beforehand. I imagined we would, but we didn't. I was just too busy, even though I lived in the same house as him. But so he just had to do the best that he could. And I guess that at the end, we kind of just looked at each other, and I said, look, you're going to have to trust me, and I'm going to have to trust you, and we're just going to have to see how it goes. And I think it went okay. And we're still talking to each other, we still love each other, and it's okay. And he did a great job. I'm really proud of Harper's performance, and I think he did good. And I really expect him to do great things later as well. And it was such a formative experience as father and son working together, and it's something we're not going to forget ever. It's Winterlong, for goodness sake. Yeah, before the film happens, you have to write the thing. There's a script, and I guess my time spent with Francis, we formed quite an intense friendship, I guess, over like a 10-year period. And it was through my observations of Francis and his situation and his relationship with his son that the sort of the character formed, I guess. So, you know, what you see on screen of Francis, the character, is very much who the man is too. You know, Francis is Francis. And, you know, and he's a very special, charismatic kind of guy to be around. And I wanted the film to reflect that. And I couldn't have done it without him. I mean, it was made in collaboration, I guess, with Francis. You know, I wrote it for him. It was always going to be him. I used his stories, his situation, and incorporated all of that into the script. And I guess my job as the writer was to give it the frame of fiction, you know, to give, you know, it the story that it needed to be, that worked over 90 minutes. And that was my job as a writer. But that came out of observation, you know, of Francis and who he is. And yeah, and he gives a terrific performance. You know, it's a very special performance, very understated, and he really got the character and you know, and really knew what to do. I mean, you know, we'd talked about the film so much over drinks and pubs, and you know, that he came out on set, there was no rehearsal, and he just did it, and he did it beautifully. How did I become a film director? It's been a long journey, really. I've been working professionally as a drama director in sort of TV drama, and that's where I met Francis to begin with on the Channel 4 drama that I was directing, and at that time, you know, I just really wanted to make a film, a feature film, and I've made 4 previous short films before this. And I've been involved in other sort of feature films that have been in development and not happened. And it just sort of came about that I was just so frustrated with the process of trying to make a low budget independent British film that I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to do this. And I'm just going to sort of start the journey of walking around, telling people that I'm going to make this film and see what sticks and who's going to help me make it. So that's kind of how it came together. But my background is, you know, I've done various things really. I went to film school. I kind of came out of film school, started making films, making trailers for TV. I worked making documentaries for Channel 4 and the BBC. Then I did drama things, and all of that time I was sort of trying to get a feature film off the ground. And there are various scripts that were written along the way that, you know, that fall by the wayside, that go into a drawer. And Winterlong was one of those things. But it just came to a point where I thought, you know what, I really, really want to make this film. And I'm really going to try and make it happen. So it was a long process. You know, when you don't have lots of money, it's a difficult thing to pull together. But enough people said yes, and we managed to make the film. So I'm really happy. Yeah, how did we get the funding for the film? The film was kind of cobbled together, really. Films are really difficult to make, and I guess, like, unlike France, where there's maybe a greater cultural support, you know, financial support for filmmakers. In the UK, it's a lot more fragmented, and filmmakers are very much kind of, how do you put it together? And so one of the ways, so I no longer sort of direct professionally, and I teach now. And one of my strategies was to sort of stop directing things I didn't want to make and to make things I really wanted to make. So I thought that maybe if I worked in a university, that would help me, you know, make more personal work, which it did. You know, I think the last 5 or 6 years since I've been teaching have been really useful in putting all of that together, you know, and making more personal work that matters to me. So Winterlong is one of those projects that's been part of that. Yeah, the University of Bedfordshire got involved because I work there as a lecturer, and so I teach filmmaking to undergraduate students and postgraduate students. And we had a new vice-chancellor who came in and had a scheme where he wanted to encourage and fund projects that brought students and staff into collaboration together. So, you know, when you're a filmmaker, you're always looking for, you know, where there's a little bit of money that you can use. And I figured, well, hey, why don't we make a film? And I proposed that to the university, and they thought, yeah, that's a really, cool idea. Let's do that. So, yeah, I managed to sort of scrabble the money from them, and but we did it in a way which was very coordinated with the students. So we managed to offer like placements, work placements to students, film students, to work on set with me. And they worked in various, departments, on the camera department, the art department, the directing department, and came on board for 2-week placements and worked. So we had around about 45 students got involved in the film one way or another. Performing arts students and filmmaking students, and they all came on board and stood in the cold and made me coffee. Yeah, Winterlong is full of difficulties. In terms of it, making the film has been very difficult, and I think we had a bit of a joke on the crew. The cast and crew. So many things went wrong, so many times, and I think, as a filmmaker, as a director, you're having to improvise every moment of the day. We had an 18-day shoot to realize the film, and that's quite an intense experience. And, because it was a landscape film, we were shooting outside in the middle of winter. It's depending on the weather, and the weather would change, the lighting would change. I don't know, actors would not be available when you thought they would be available. Things were constantly changing because we didn't have the money. So, as a director, you have to improvise. And your job is really to hold the whole thing together and just focus everybody's attention and just keep going, for the 18 days. I knew that there's no chance I would ever get to go back and reshoot anything. So I had to get everything that I needed for the film in those 18 days. And I think maybe we went back for one day to do pickups and to do landscape shots and some of the shots that didn't involve actors. So, but that was much later after the editing and things. But the whole process was fraught with difficulties. Everything went wrong all the time. Like on the first day, for instance, I'd worked so hard to gather this crew together and to gather the actors, and on the very first day it was like pouring with rain. It was, we all got together. We went off and did the diner scene in a cafe between the father and son, and we all travelled out for like 40 minutes in cars and everything, pouring rain, and it was the very first scene for the film. And when we got there, the location was shut. The cafe was shut. Everybody, and I remember looking at the crew and the cast, and they all looked at me, and I just went, "It's Winterlong." And from then on, whenever anything went wrong, we'd just all look at each other and say, "It's Winterlong." What do you expect? The thing for me, as a filmmaker making, this is my debut film, and I wanted to make a film in order to make a second film, and I feel like I've learned so much, and I just feel so at home making narrative sort of feature films. So I do want to make another film, and I've got sort of a couple of projects which are in various stages of development. There are a couple of scripts that I've had in the drawer that I'm going to look at again, but there's a couple of fresh things I want to do too, and we'll see really. I've kind of talking to a producer, and we're just sort of deciding on what the projects may be and what we go on to develop. So the answer is fluid at the moment. I've got lots of ideas, and we will see what sticks over the next 6 months.